What's going on, guys? Klitschko here. I'm sure you can tell by the title, but today going to be predicting the 2026-2027 NBA season. Going to put down all my predictions on this little chart here. I'm going to go try to put one East, one West, all the way through the 1 to 8 seeds. And obviously each of these will just have the non-playoff / play-in teams. But I think we can just go ahead and get right into it. It's going to be a very exciting season. We've had a lot of big off-season moves. There's been a lot of stars on the move. We've got Giannis in Miami. We've got LeBron James, who just recently signed with the Philadelphia 76ers. Got LaMelo Ball going to the Timberwolves. Kawhi Leonard trade is still pending, but he's going back to Toronto. I'm sure I'm forgetting a big one. Jaylen Brown, he's on the Philadelphia 76ers as well. Big offseason for the 76ers for sure. Just a lot of big moves. This has been one of the more exciting off seasons we've had in recent NBA history. Just as far as stars moving teams, free agency, trades, everything. There's been a lot of interesting trades so far. There's still a lot of unsigned guys. DeMar DeRozan still a free agent. Jalen Duren, James Harden, Russell Westbrook still a free agent. Still a lot of potential for some big moves. So I'm doing this video on the day that LeBron signed with the 76ers. We'll see how many more moves happen, but as of right now, I think the most important ones have been made. So let's get into this prediction, shall we? We're just gonna go from the first one that came on the chart. We'll stop at the Timberwolves. First team is the Portland Trailblazers. They had a big addition in Ja Morant this offseason. Obviously, they're gonna be getting Dame back healthy. They've still got Drew Holiday. They've got Shaedon Sharpe. Their guard rotation is gonna be pretty nasty. You'll have Donovan Clingan coming into his second year. I think it's his second year. I think he was a rookie last year. If it's not his second year, it's his third year. Denny Avdia coming off a great all-star season. They've got a lot of good defensive guys. Toumani Camara. It's going to be a interesting season for the Trailblazers in the tough Western Conference. We'll see how Ja Morant does on that team. But I think I'm going to stick Portland. Let's see. These are going to be tentative. These are probably going to end up moving throughout the video. But I see Portland making a push this year to not be a play-in team. Just for how good defensively they've been, and they've got a very strong chance to be a good offensive team with Dame back, kind of depending on how he plays coming off that torn Achilles. I'll throw them, for right now, I'll throw them at the 6th seed. Like I said, the West is very tough, like they always are. So that's very tentative. They could be a play-in team this year. They could not even make the play-in. Maybe the Ja-Dame fit just won't work, and Ja will be dealt at the deadline or something. I'm not sure. We'll see what happens. But they're a very promising young team. They've got a lot of young stars on that team that could keep them in contention in the West for quite a long time. Milwaukee Bucks, let's see. They had a very, very big trade this offseason that dealt Giannis to the Miami Heat, which is my favorite team. But they got quite the haul back for Giannis. They were able to acquire Tyler Hero. They got Kel'el Ware, who I think is going to be really good for them. Jaime Jaquez, who was a 6th Man of the Year finalist last year. He played really well for the Miami Heat off the bench. And then they got Kasparas Yakuchonis, who didn't have a ton of action last year, but I'm sure he'll have a pretty good spot in Milwaukee's rotation, considering how they've pretty much just gutted the roster since the championship. I don't see them really doing much this year. I'm thinking they're going to be bottom of the league, 13 to 15 seed in the East. They could maybe make the play-in if Hero gets hot, but I mean, that's pretty much all they got. They still have Miles Turner there. Ryan Rollins had a good season last year for him. Kyle Kuzma's not going to do nothing. But yeah, I don't see them getting any higher than the 13 or 15 seed, 13, 14, or 15. They just don't have a lot of pieces yet. They very well could be a solid team. Give it 2-3 years, they could be solid. They've got some young pieces that could develop, and they're going to have some solid draft picks from trading Giannis. I don't know how many firsts they got from the Heat, but they'll probably be picking 2-3 times in the first round of the next 2-3 years. So very, very big potential for them to be a solid squad next couple of years, but this year, not so much. If we look at the Chicago Bulls, they have not done a ton this offseason, I don't believe. Let me actually do some research real quick. Let me make sure they didn't do any big trades that I'm forgetting about. Okay, so it looks like the biggest thing that the Bulls did this offseason, obviously they drafted Caleb Wilson, who's looked great in the Summer League so far. They have Josh Giddey, triple-double threat, but they did sign Norman Powell, who's coming off an all-star season with the Heat. He was a 20 points per game scorer, and they also got Nick Claxton, kind of just like as a throw-in deal with the Julius Randle trade. There's going to be some fluctuating going on here in the East. I think the top 6 will probably be it. I think the play-in teams aren't going to be very good in the East this year, but again, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Next up here, we have the Boston Celtics, who made a very, very questionable move. One of the most questionable moves I think I've ever seen in trading Jaylen Brown for Paul George, a 36-year-old Paul George, and 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks. Extremely questionable, especially if you're completely basing your season off of how Jason Tatum's going to play, coming off of that torn Achilles. I know he kind of returned last season, but you didn't really get the full showing of how he's going to be. Obviously, he's still going to be Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum's a great scorer. But we're definitely going to see how that team pans out. They still have Derek White. They haven't made a ton of other acquisitions this offseason, I don't think. They just kind of retained the same team, except they've got Paul George instead of Jaylen Brown. So it's, in my opinion, a big drop down. So the Celtics find ways to win. I could see them being out of the play-in. I'm going to put them in here at the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. That's one of the biggest question marks. If I come back to this video next year after the season has concluded and I see the Celtics are the number 1 seed and best team in the NBA, it wouldn't surprise me, just because that's just how the Celtics are. They always find ways to win no matter who's on the team. The Celtics have always been a team where it's like, oh, you gotta go through the Celtics. So we'll see how this goes. But a 6th seed I don't think is bad. I think it's for sure a question mark on them, because you never know with the Celtics. All right, next up we have the Los Angeles Clippers. I think this is going to be an interesting team this season. They have Brandon Ingram on the team now, as long as that Kawhi trade does go through. Who all did they get in that trade? Was it Brandon Ingram, the biggest guy, and they just got picks? Let me look up the details on that trade, and let me look at the Clippers roster and see how that's going. Okay, so I forgot they traded for Darius Garland at the trade deadline last year for James Harden. They got Benedict Mathurin, a part of the trade that was with Ivica Zubac to the Pacers. They just signed Rui Hachimura. But I don't see this team making the playoffs with Darius Garland and Brandon Ingram as your main guys. We could see Benedict Mathurin potentially have a pretty solid season, but I don't think in the strong Western Conference, I don't see them making the playoffs. They might make the play-in, but I could very well see them being an 11 or 12 seed as well. So I'm going to put them in the back end of the play-in / out of the playoffs spot. I think it's a solid shot for that team. They're not going to be expecting much. They don't have a lot of young guys that I think are going to bloom. They got Keaton Wagler, who's a solid rookie. I think he should be, but it's not going to be enough for them to be good in the Western Conference this year. That's another interesting one here. The Golden State Warriors. They were one of the teams that I would have picked them over the 76ers for LeBron to go. So that team is going to be left with pretty much the same team they had last year. I don't know if Jimmy Butler's going to be coming back to return at the start of the season, but they're still going to have Steph. They're going to have Dre. They've got Brandon Podziemski. Porzingis is there. No, wait. Yeah, Porzingis is on the Warriors. And then if Jimmy Butler's back, that's a pretty solid starting five. Their bench isn't the best, but it's okay. I don't see this team making it out of the play-in with no major add-ons. This team's just getting older and older. Steph Curry can only do so much, and this team has pretty consistently underwhelmed me in what their abilities could be. I think they've been in the play-in the last 2 or 3 years, but I'm not seeing them be any higher than play-in. I'm going to throw them in at the 8 seed. In the Western Conference, there's going to be a lot of teams that are kind of questionable in that area, but I think the Warriors will be on the top half of the play-in tournament. Next team is Memphis Grizzlies. I think this is a pretty easy 13 to 15 seed. I think they will likely finish probably dead last in the Western Conference. This team kind of gutted everybody that they had from the good team that they did have. They drafted Cam Boozer. Regardless, the Grizzlies I don't think they're going to be anything higher than a 13 seed this season. They might win like 20 games, 25 games, but they're not going to be a good team this season. And if they are, then I look stupid, and good for them. But I'm very confident they're going to be one of the worst teams in the NBA. The next team is the Hawks. The Hawks had a very good season last year. Despite trading Trae Young, they've got Jalen Johnson, who's a first-time All-Star last year. Jonathan Kuminga is a current restricted free agent. He's still out there. I'm not sure what the situation is with that. I don't know if he's going to return or not. I know there's been a bunch of rumors about him going to the Lakers. But no, the Hawks, they're a very solid team. They made some moves too. They got Aaron Wiggins. Did they get Isaiah Joe? Was that the other person they got? No, they got Lou Dort. They got Aaron Wiggins and Lou Dort. Nickeil Alexander-Walker had a really good season last year. So it's Onyeka Okongwu. He's a very solid big man. Nothing super crazy about him, but he's consistent. He does his job perfectly fine. He's a perfect starting center. Dyson Daniels and CJ McCollum are also on that team. They've got Buddy Hield. Dude, they made a lot of moves. Kingston Flemings was their draft pick, who I think will be pretty solid. This is a pretty deep team. They got another year out of the leadership of Jalen Johnson. I think this is going to be a solid team, if not this year, next year for sure. I'm going to put the Hawks at the top half of the playoffs. I'm going to put them as the 4 seed. Yeah, I'll leave the Hawks at the 4 seed. I think they're going to be a better team than some of the other teams I'm thinking of. One of the ones is this next one here, the Miami Heat. It's a very big question mark with how Bam Adebayo and Giannis are going to pair in that front court. their defense should be tremendous if you got Giannis at the front of it with Bam, Davion Mitchell at your guard, Andrew Wiggins. They did lose a lot of their scoring, so Miami could be a solid team if they can get it done offensively. I think there's no doubt in my mind they're going to be at least top 10 defensively, if not top 5. But we'll see how their offensive game is. Obviously, Giannis is going to get his probably 25 to 30 points per game. Bam will get his 15 to 20. But other than that, there's not a whole ton of consistency on the Miami Heat. I'm expecting a big season out of Nikola Jovic with all the openings that's kind of came up, with losing 3 rotational guys. But it's a big question mark. I'm going to throw them in at the 5 seed. I don't think they're going to be playing with Giannis there and that defense. The situation, I was thinking about it, it's pretty similar to what Giannis had in Milwaukee. But the difference is I think Bam Adebayo's switchable defensive presence will be a lot more valuable than what Miles Turner was bringing to the table for the Bucks last year. And then they'll also have Andrew Wiggins, picked up Tim Hardaway Jr., and they've got Bobby Portis as well. So those are 2 more solid potential. I think Tim Hardaway will probably start at that 2 spot, and then Bobby Portis will be their 6th man. And I also liked what I was seeing out of Ryan Conwell, the rookie that they got out of Louisville. Yes, he's out of Louisville. I think they'll be definitely a solid team. There's some big question marks, though. I could see them being anywhere from the 3 seed range all the way down to not even making the playoffs. It wouldn't be insane if they didn't make the playoffs this year with the team that they have, but I think I'm going to throw them at the 5 spot. I think that's a pretty safe bet. I don't think they'll be in the play-in, but it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, it just takes one injury to Giannis for him to miss 40 games, which is the unfortunate part. But if he stays healthy, I mean, they're going to be a solid team for sure. This next team here, the Charlotte Hornets, they were a team that, did they make the playoffs last year? I don't think they did. I know they beat Miami in the play-in for the 9-10 game. Who did the Pistons play first round? The Pistons played the Magic. So the Magic would have had to... Okay. So I know the Hornets had a really, really good stretch towards the end of the season last year. But obviously they don't have LaMelo Ball anymore. They got Naz Reid instead. They still have Con Knipple. They still have Brandon Miller. They're an up-and-coming team. I think Con Knipple could very easily average 25 this year. I think Brandon Miller could also average north of 20. If they start Naz Reid, I can say the same thing for Naz Reid. I think he could average over 20 if the other two don't produce as much as they're wanting them to. This team's a big question mark. I see them kind of being in the play-in again this year, just for how young they are. I'll throw them in as in the top half. I think they can be a solid 8 seed. Let's see if everything still makes sense. Yeah, okay. I keep forgetting. I'm going to have to do one East, 1 West in the top half, and then these are all going to have 6 teams from 3 East, 3 West. But yeah, the Hornets will be an interesting one. They're very young, but they've got some dogs on that team for sure. Like I said, I'm a Kentucky fan. I'm not a big Duke guy, but Con Knipple, he's pretty special. I do respect his game. Next team is going to be the Utah Jazz. I think the Utah Jazz will be improved for sure. But like I said before many times, the Western Conference is very, very tough. I think they'll improve from, what were they last year, the 14 seed? I think they might make a play-in appearance. I'm going to throw them in here as the 9 to 12. I guess I could do the first team as 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so there's going to be 8 teams here. 4 from each conference. Okay, so yeah, I'll do it as 1 East, 1 West. Whoever's the first 2 teams will be the 9 seeds, the 10 seeds, 11 seeds, 12 seeds. So I'm going to put the Bulls in as the 9 seed in the East, Clippers as the 9 seed in the West. I think the Jazz will probably make the play-in. I'm going to put them as the 10 seed in the West as the bottom half of the play-in. They they made some solid moves with their draft picks. They've got Jaren Jackson Jr. on the roster. They've still, they don't have Walker Kessler. Walker Kessler's gone. But I mean, they've got Jaren Jackson. They've got Lauri Markkanen. Keontae George is pretty solid. They'll have Darren Peterson, who I think is going to come in and just be a great scorer right off the bat. But we'll see how they do. They could surprise people. They could make the top 6 in the West potentially. We'll see how they do. But I see them being in the lower half of the play-in, realistically. I think this team right here, the Sacramento Kings, this is a pretty solid shout to be with the Grizzlies as the 13, 14, 15 seed. I think these two are going to be the bottom 2 in the league, just record-wise. I don't think anybody's going to be worse than the Grizzlies and Kings. The Kings kind of just go to their roster too. They traded De'Aaron Fox not this most recent trade deadline before last year. They waived DeMar DeRozan, who's still looking for a home. Russell Westbrook didn't come back. They still have Zach LaVine and they still have Sabonis, but if I had to guess, Sabonis will probably be traded before the start of the season. I haven't really seen a ton of rumors about Domantas Sabonis being traded or Zach LaVine, but it doesn't make sense for them to stay, for the Kings to keep either of them. They're not going to make the playoffs if they couldn't make it with DeMar on that team. So I don't see them being any higher than the 14 or 15 seed. I'm assuming there's going to be some trades still going on with the Kings. We'll see what happens. All right, we're starting to get into our top teams here. We have the reigning NBA champions, the New York Knicks, who I did not have a very high expectation for them this upcoming season or the prior season, but they surprised me and a lot of other people and winning the championship pretty easily. So I mean, they had an incredible playoff run. I don't see this team being any lower than the 1 or 2 seed in the East. I'm going to throw them at the 2 seed. It doesn't make sense to me that they'd be any lower than that. They're better than Cleveland. They've got a really, really good, solid team. They can stay healthy for the most part of the last few years. There's never been injury problems with the Knicks. Obviously, I know that's not super skill-based, but it happens. Some teams are very injury-prone and they just never pan out. But the Knicks have been pretty consistent. So I see them being a 2 seed, maybe a 1 seed. I don't see them dropping below the 3 seed. But I think they'll be a pretty solid shout at the 2 seed. Next team we got here is the Los Angeles Lakers, who obviously just lost LeBron. LeBron just went to the Philadelphia 76ers. They still have Luka. They still got Austin Reeves. They just made quite a few signings as soon as free agency hit. They brought in Walker Kessler. They brought in Colin Sexton. And they got Quentin Grimes, who's a pretty underrated signing. They also just got Matisse Thybulle not too long ago, just a couple days ago. So they're the Lakers. They have pretty much underperformed ever since AD left. But I think this year, having another full season with Luka, as long as he can stay healthy, I see the Lakers being a 4 or 5 seed, kind of like how they were last year. Let's throw them at 5. The West is very tough. We got a lot of Western Conference teams coming up. I've done a lot of East. I've not done a lot of West. But yeah, I see them being middle of the road playoffs. I don't see them not making the playoffs this year with Luka. Luka's a pretty consistent guy when it comes with getting wins in the regular season. All right, next team is the Magic. The Magic were able to force a Game 7 against the number 1 seed Detroit Pistons. I think they could have went farther if they beat the Pistons. That's a pretty obvious fact, but I could have seen them beating Cleveland and making the conference finals as an 8 seed if they won that Game 7. They've got a solid team. They've got a pretty solid big 3 with Desmond Bane, Franz Wagner, and Paolo Banchero. Wendell Carter in the middle, and then Jalen Suggs at guard. It's a pretty good starting 5. I think they re-signed Vuk. I think Vucevic is back on the Magic. But their roster's pretty much the exact same. They just added Vuk. This Magic team in the East could make some noise. I remember last year I thought they were going to be a lot better, but I know they had some injuries. I know Franz missed some time. I think Banchero missed some time too. But it's going to be interesting to see what they can do if their team stays healthy. So I'm going to throw them as a tentative. I guess I don't have a lot of spots left. I can throw them as a 7 seed. I think that's a fair shout. Man, I'm going to have to move some teams around. There's other the East is better than I think. I'm looking at some of these teams. Like, if I were to do this, I would have to make either the Sixers, Pistons, or Raptors as a team not making the playoffs, which is just not going to happen. Yeah, I'm going to have to move some stuff around here a little bit. But I think the Magic as a 7 seed for now is solid. We'll see what they do in the future, but their team kind of stayed the same. If they stay healthy, they'll be in the playoffs, but the big question is if they stay healthy. Next thing we got here is the Dallas Mavericks. This is another team that I think is going to be a developing team. Kyrie might be coming back, or well, he will be coming back. But the question is whether or not he's going to be normal Kyrie. That's the question. Cooper Flagg had a tremendous rookie season last year. Obviously, they traded Anthony Davis for not a ton. They did not get a big return for Anthony Davis. They've still got their centers. They still got Clay as of right now. I think Clay's locked in there. I don't think he's a free agent. But like I said, I don't see this team being super good. They might make the play-in, but I see them being in the 9 to 12 range. Next team, Brooklyn Nets. This is going to be one of the other teams that's a pretty far bottom. I'm going to put them here just because I'm having these teams as 14 and 15. But the Nets, they don't have a lot to look forward to. They've got Michael Porter Jr. and Julius Randle. They've got a lot of young guys on the team that could do something this year, but I don't think those young guys are going to bring them into the playoffs anywhere near it. They'll be at the bottom, picking pretty high again. We'll see what they do, but it's not going to be anything special, I can tell you that. Denver Nuggets. This is a team that's always been in contention ever since Nikola Jokic has kind of blossomed. I see them being a top 4 seed, probably top 3. I can pretty confidently throw them in as a 3 seed. I don't think they're going to be higher than the Thunder or Spurs, but they could definitely be the 3 seed in that conference. They've got Jamal Murray still. They've still got Nikola Jokic, Christian Brown, Aaron Gordon, Cam Johnson. They're a pretty consistent team. Jamal Murray had his first All-Star appearance last year, but he had a great season last year. I think he averaged a career high, I think. But as long as, like I said, as long as the Nuggets stay healthy, they'll be a top 3 seed in the West, in my opinion. I don't see any other Western Conference team other than the Thunder and Spurs being higher than them. Speaking of the Thunder, a pretty safe bet to put them at number 1. They're an extremely good regular season team. They're really good defensively, and they've got a lot of guys that can get outlet passes and just score. Obviously, they've got the MVP, Shea. He, another Kentucky guy. He's incredible, man. He will definitely be a frontrunner for MVP next season too. With that Thunder team, J-Dub is. Hopefully he can stay healthy, but I mean they're going to be the Thunder. They're going to be a good regular season team. We'll just see if they can finish the job as a number 1 seed this upcoming season. All right, next thing we got is the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers are another question mark this season, just because Tyrese Halliburton's coming off that torn Achilles. They still have Pascal Siakam. They traded for Ivica Zubac at the trade deadline last year. If I had to guess, yeah, I was wrong saying the Eastern Conference was weak, man. This is a pretty solid Eastern Conference. I don't want to count out the Celtics. I'm going to have to move somebody, though, because I think the Pacers are going to make the playoffs. Maybe I'll just move everybody down. I'll move the Hornets into this 9-12 range. Magic is an 8. Celtics there. I'll keep the Heat there. I'll put the Pacers as a 6 seed. No, I'll move the Celtics higher than them. I think that's a fair shout, having them at the 7 seed. because like I said, Halliburton's play style was extremely fluid. He had to be moving at all times to do what he does. And coming off a torn Achilles, you might not be able to move the way you used to. So we'll see. We'll see how Halliburton plays. But if he's Tyrese Halliburton, the Pacers could very well be a top 5 seed in the East, especially getting a solid big man and replacing Miles Turner, who left in free agency the year before. The Pacers could be a solid team. It just kind of depends on Tyrese Halliburton's health. New Orleans Pelicans. This team has been a huge disappointment in recent years. They had a very, very strong team with DeJounte Murray, CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, Zion a few years ago, and they just did not perform. I don't see them being any better this year. I see them kind of sticking bottom of the league. They will probably be joining the Kings and Grizzlies as the 13 to 15 slots. I think they'll probably be better than them. I'm going to throw them as a 13 seed along with the Bucks. So we just got to figure out the 15 seed in the East, which I've got a pretty decent guess at who it's going to be. Well, actually, maybe I don't. Forgot the Wizards are actually good. Man, this Eastern Conference, dude, it's kind of deep. These teams just, I mean, the league is just getting better and better as we watch it. But this is going to be an interesting season. There's a lot of teams that might not make the playoffs who are definitely worthy of it. Like, I still got the Washington Wizards, who are very much improved with Trae Young, Anthony Davis, and AJ Dubasta. I can see them making the playoffs. But again, it's a first season with all them. Trae Young, I think he'll probably do fine. Anthony Davis, I love him, but man, he's got to stay healthy. Yeah, dude, this is hard because I have the Detroit Pistons next. And as much as I want to put them at the 1 seed, I think the 76ers are going to take that spot. Let me just go ahead and throw them up there now. I'm pretty certain the 76ers, with that squad they have, they're going to be the number 1 seed. I think the starting lineup of Maxey, Edgecombe, Brown, LeBron, and Embiid. And then off the bench, they've got, I know they signed Anthony Simons. They lost Kelly Oubre, but I mean, that's starting 5 alone. You could run really whoever off your bench and you're going to be fine. I know there's been people who have been questioning whether or not LeBron's going to ruin that team. But I don't think so. Because, I mean, it's still going to be an improved roster no matter what, just because you pretty much swapped Paul George for Jaylen Brown and LeBron. I don't know. I mean, it's just, I feel like it'd be stupid for me to not put them as a 1 seed. But I mean, I could see them dropping to 2 or 3 as well. But I don't see them being anywhere below top 3 in the East. I'm going to move some teams around here. I think I'm going to drop everybody in the East by 1. Let's see. I got 3 teams there. Drop them. I'm going to move the Pistons into the 3 spot. Oh, dude, this is hard, man. There's so many good teams. Still got the Wizards. I got the Wizards and I got the Raptors, who I both think could make the playoffs next year. Doing some thinking here. The Pistons are going to be the Pistons. They were the number 1 seed in the East last year with Cade Cunningham. As long as Jalen Duren signs back, I think they're going to be another top 3 season in the East. I don't think they're going to finish number 1 again. They've got Asar Thompson. Ron Holland could hopefully have a better season. John Collins signed with the Pistons. They've got Isaiah Joe. I mean, Cade Cunningham is a good enough player to bring them to a top 3 seed. We'll kind of see how that Jalen Duren situation pans out. I'm predicting he just returns. They're just kind of waiting on a deal to pop into place. But if they somehow just let him go, then this could be a very different story for the Detroit Pistons. I could see them not making the playoffs if they don't re-sign Jalen Duren. just because their centers are going to be Paul Reed and no, Isaiah Stewart's gone. Isaiah Stewart went to the Grizzlies, I think. So yeah, they're gonna have to make some decisions here. They got to get Jalen Duren back, or this is my prediction with Jalen Duren. If Jalen Duren doesn't sign, I could see them falling a lot farther. But with the team that they currently have, as long as Duren's there, they're going to be a top 3 seed. I think it's for sure going to be Sixers, Knicks, Pistons. The Cavs might take one of those spots, but I don't see these 4 not being in the top 4. Next team we got here is the Toronto Raptors, who is another team that they're supposed to be extremely good defensively. It's going to be very annoying, I feel like, to play against them. So that might just wear some teams down. I'm going to drop the Bulls down. I'm going to drop the Bulls down to there as I'll put the Nets as the 15 seed, Bulls as the 14 seed, Bucks as the 13 seed, which means that I have to, man, this is tough. I'll say the Hornets. I know I talked them up, but I think in this Eastern Conference, they're going to have to finish as the 12 seed. I'll throw the Magic in there as the 11 seed. Pacers can go in here as the 10 seed. And then I'll throw the Raptors in here as the 8 seed. I think that's a pretty solid shout. I think the Raptors and Pacers could be interchangeable. I think the Magic could be in that group too. I think all 3 of these teams could be in that 8, 9, 10 range in the play-in. But as long as the Kawhi trade goes through, I think that the Raptors are going to be a team to look out for. I know last year they finished as a 5 seed. They got to think too. This Eastern Conference has gotten a lot better, and I know the Celtics made one of the worst trades, but they still got Tatum. They still got White. I can't count them out just because it's the Celtics and they've got Brad Stevens running things. He's an extremely smart guy, but I don't. It's hard to rank these teams, and the Wizards are the last Eastern Conference team that I have, and I'm gonna have to throw them in the play-in too. But I'm not as mad about that as I would be if I were throwing the Raptors in the potential play-in out of the playoff spot. The Houston Rockets. So what seeds do I have left for the West? I have the 2 seed, which is, I'm just going to go ahead and put the Spurs there. The Spurs are not, I don't see them and the Thunder not being number 1 and number 2. I think that's going to be a very entertaining rivalry for the next probably 5 to 7 years. I think those two are going to be just going back and forth in the West. So I have those spots taken. Let me put the East on the right side. I think the Rockets, man. The Rockets they were solid last year with their roster, but Kevin Durant's getting older, and I just don't think he fits in very well with that Rockets team. They traded away Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks for him last year. Kevin Durant's obviously an incredible scorer, but I think the door is just being shut away for more of their young guys to get some time. Having Amen Thompson, Alperen Şengün, they've got Reed Shepherd, Jabari Smith. I mean, they've got a pretty solid young group of players. I think they're going to be better whenever Durant retires. I'm going to throw them in at the 7th seed here, though. I think they'll be good enough to make the play-in, and I don't think they're not going to make the playoffs. They'll probably just win their first game. It's just very, very hard to judge this right now. I don't think this is going to be as hard as it is. I'm going to throw the Minnesota Timberwolves in at the 4 seed. Getting LaMelo Ball. Obviously, they lose Julius Randle, but having a duo of LaMelo and Ant is going to be interesting, as well as they have Jaden McDaniels and Rudy Gobert still. They re-signed Ayo Dosunmu, who had a great playoff run for him last postseason. We'll see what they do It's hard to rank them in here, as a 4 seed might seem a little high. I'm going to swap these two, actually. I think that's a better judgment. I think the Lakers will be better than the Timberwolves this year. But Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball. It'll be interesting to see LaMelo Ball playing competitive basketball. He's kind of been in Charlotte as like in his own world. He just kind of does like whatever he wants in Charlotte. So it'll be interesting to see him playing a competitive level of basketball. But we'll see. I mean, I could see them finishing anywhere from 4 to not even making the playoffs. But I think Anthony Edwards he's a winner. Anthony Edwards is really good, man. I don't see them not making the playoffs as long as he's there. These last 2 teams, they're going to be my final 9 to 12 spots. My question is just where am I going to put them in here? I think the Pacers at the 9 seed is pretty solid. I think I'll put the Wizards in here as the 11 seed and have the Hornets be the 12 seed. Yeah, okay. I think the Mavericks are going to be worse. Okay, so they'll be there. And then I can throw the Suns. I think the Suns will be just out of the play-in and at the 11 seed. Those 2 teams are very interesting. The Suns were actually pretty decent last year. They made the playoffs as the 8 seed through the play-in. They've still got Book, obviously. They just changed his number to number 15, I think. He's trying to do like the Kobe half and half. I love Book. I hope they do better than the 11 seed, but I just think realistically that's probably what it's going to be looking like. And then the Wizards with Trae Young, Anthony Davis, AJ Devansta. Anthony Davis is the biggest question mark on that team. Whether or not he's even going to be on the team by the start of the season, just because I know there's been some discrepancies on the contract extension. It's been quite a story with him over the last few years, but I think the Wizards have potential to be a strong team, but I'm just going to make the assumption that Anthony Davis is not going to play over half, or he'll play half around that, and that's just not going to be good enough in this Eastern Conference. But yeah, this is it. This is what my predictions are. The play-in tournament, I'm not 100% sure how it'll go, but I feel like I can almost guarantee that the Rockets and Celtics are going to make the playoffs. The 8 seed will be kind of a toss-up between, I guess, these 6 teams. And then obviously the bottom of the league, I feel like is pretty set. I don't think that's going to be any different. There's a lot of question marks throughout all this. It's really hard to judge this with how new all these teams are. Obviously the Sixers are redone. The Heat, they've got a pretty much brand new style of basketball they're going to be playing. The Celtics just traded away arguably their best player from last season. The Raptors are bringing in a great guy. Pacers bringing in not bringing anybody. They're getting Halliburton back. And then you got teams like the Lakers who just lost LeBron, but I still think they're going to be good. Timberwolves lost Julius Randle and Naz Reid, but they got LaMelo Ball. Portland getting Ja. I mean, it's going to be an interesting season, no doubt. But that's my prediction. And by the end of the 2026-2027 NBA season, I'm going to come back and I'm going to look at this and probably be completely wrong. But we will for sure see. I appreciate you guys for tuning into this video, listening to my predictions, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.